Well, you either die a hero, or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I mean, I guess it could have been worse. They could have cast Robert Downey Jr. to play Kang. So yeah, as you've heard, Robert Downey Jr. has been cast as Doctor Doom. Now I will say, this is the first time the MCU has given us a big announcement to talk about. I mean, this is the kind of announcement that we used to get from the MCU back when they were in their prime, back when their announcements meant something and provided actual hype. We haven't gotten this level announcement from them for as long as I can remember. I mean, nowadays, this is the only kind of hype that we can get from these Marvel announcements.
Hey Jake, what's with the asterisk?
Oh, the asterisk. I can tell you that it means something. You want me to tell them what it means? You tell them.
No.
Yeah.
You have to see the movie!
So I get it, bringing Robert Downey Jr. back is a big announcement. But then comes the problems. Honestly, this really comes across as desperate. All these years we have been wondering who could play Doctor Doom, and for it to end up being Robert Downey Jr. is very disappointing. I feel Marvel, like what many of these clueless studio executives do, misunderstood us. We have all said that post-Endgame, without Tony Stark and Captain America, the MCU has not been the same. It's nowhere near as good as it once was. That wasn't our way of saying bring Robert Downey Jr. back. That's not what we said. It just reeks of desperation and proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Marvel doesn't know how to fix the MCU. So they essentially hit the panic button and are going back to what worked, albeit in a cheap way to win audiences back. But in the process, they are going to piss off hardcore Doom fans. Marvel have been pissing a lot of comic book fans off lately, which is ironic when Deadpool and Wolverine recently made comic book fans so happy. And that's because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman cared about honouring the comics. But with Phase 4 and 5 of the MCU, as well as this recent decision, Kevin Feige clearly doesn't care about comic book fans. And Doom is not a villain that is misunderstood, he is just pure evil. But knowing the MCU, especially considering that they hired Robert Downey Jr., I can't help but feel that they are going to try and make him another sympathetic villain, which is not in keeping with the source material. And I have the sneaking suspicion that they are going to try and service the actor rather than the character. And yes, this is going to be a multiverse Doctor Doom. The Russo Brothers made that clear on stage. And another thing this made me think about, we don't like these new Avengers. None of them have taken off. So will we be rooting for them or Robert Downey Jr. to kill them? Also, Doom never takes off his mask, but because they'll be paying big money to get Robert Downey Jr., will they keep having him take his mask off so they can show Robert Downey Jr.'s face? This all just seems misguided, and Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor, but the MCU has made him as iconic as you can get, and I don't think it's possible for us to separate the idea that he's Tony Stark, and I think it will be so distracting. It's even distracting just thinking about it now as a concept. The only thing I can think is that it's also distracting for the characters, and therefore we are all in on the very jarring fact that Tony Stark is now playing the big bad. The only good thing about this is that the Russo Brothers are behind it, and I never would have imagined that the Russo Brothers would write and direct for Doctor Doom. But that idea excites me. They did wonders for Thanos in Infinity War, and they directed the best action in the MCU, so it would be cool to see them do the same here. Even though Thanos wasn't anywhere near as good in Endgame, but still, I can't think of anyone better than the Russos to do Doctor Doom, so yeah, why not? Just don't do it with Robert Downey Jr. and we have something here. And they are going to tee him up for Secret Wars with Avengers 5, which at first was called the Kang Dynasty, but is now going to be called Doomsday. The reason for this, aside from the obvious, is because they rightfully see Kang as a useless villain after the strongest Kang got beaten by Ant-Man and the Wasp. So who wants to see more of them? They'll all just be weaker than Kang the Destroyer. And also because Doom is a much more interesting villain, so my guess is that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be the Doctor Doom of the Fantastic Four movies universe, and he'll be teased in a credit scene or something, because apparently Galactus is supposed to be the villain of that film, and somehow he'll be transferred over to the main MCU universe. I bet you the Russo brothers made this decision because Kevin Feige clearly wanted to do more with Kang, but the Russos came in, threw Kang to the wayside, and now we have Doom. just not the one we wanted. And I don't know if this is Marvel throwing in the towel, or the Russo Brothers throwing in the towel and saying, this is all a mess, Kevin. We've not made our Winter Soldier or Civil War before we get to our 2 Avengers films this time. So we can't clean all of this up. We don't know what to do with your villain. You've not built him up properly. So we want to build up our villain and then have him be the big bad for our next film. I think that's what's going on, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Russos try to clean up the MCU. I don't think Kevin Feige would ask them to clean it up, but I bet you the people at the top, like Bob Iger, who see all of this as a problem and does not want to make sequels to things like The Eternals, for example, which the leaks have come out recently, and rumours that Feige is trying to get Eternals 2 off the ground, but Bob Iger, with his recent attempt to say we're going to be pulling back on how much we make and do quality over quantity, basically told Kevin Feige, no Eternals 2. And I'm sure he told him no other things as well, and I would not be surprised if Bob Iger overruled Kevin Feige and told the Russo brothers in their movie to have Doctor Doom kill off these characters they're not going to make sequels for. So there are some cool things that can come up, but the thing is, we never cared about these Avengers, so if they get killed off, who cares? As it stands, this feels like a cheap way to get people to talk about the movie and get butts in theaters. Like I said, desperate. The only interesting thing I can think of is what Tom Holland's Spider-Man reaction would be to seeing a super evil Tony Stark variant. I would trust the Russo brothers to write that well, because the other writers for Spider-Man clearly didn't care, because in Spider-Man Far From Home, he couldn't care less when Tony Stark died and was acting so happy throughout the whole film, except for the scripted scenes when the movie thought it was time for at least one tearjerker. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my thoughts on this casting? Do you disagree? Sound off in the comments below. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot to talk about in this space. Be sure to like and share the video, follow me on Patreon and YouTube memberships if you want exclusive content, including trailer reactions for when we see Robert Downey Jr. as Doom in those Avengers trailers, and as always, I'll catch all of you very soon. Take care.